Apparently, I picked a good week to fill in for Candace Young on Young and Restless soapbox duty. This handful of episodes was pretty damn excellent. Sharon served Chance a little something extra with his triple espresso. Summer literally smelled a rat. Victor forcefully mixed the equivalent of Mentos and cola. And Phyllis continued to be the greatest one-woman show on earth. Read on, and we'll go over what, at least I thought, worked, what didn't, and what has to be coming up. Cue the sad Charlie Brown music. The week began with Victor, never exactly a portrait of self-awareness, wondering why his family was in such shambles. "It's you," screamed every mirror in the house. You. Ignoring the mirrors, the sulky schemer revealed to Nikki that he had a plan. "Oh God," read the thought bubble above her head. "Couldn't I just give you some of my Lexapro?" Ignoring the thought bubble as much as he had the mirrors, the tycoon called Victoria, Nick, and Adam, as well as Nate, to a meeting at which he announced that from here on it was going to be his way or the highway. How this differed from business as usual, for all practical purposes, I have no idea. And why was Abby the only one of Victor's children not ordered to do this or that at the confab? Why was she not even ordered to attend? Should we be happy for her or insulted on her behalf? The Nick had been put on leave by Victoria, so he was barely an employee of the family business anymore, when Daddy tasked him with babysitting loathed half-brother Adam at Augustus, which still sounds like a cleaning service to me. Augustus, an Amapus, and a Sweepus. He literally replied, "Sure, fine." What? Was Nick's spine removed at the door? Why would a mega-rich and disgruntled dude like him say, "What the heck? You betcha I'll work with the person I hate most in the world," when he'd literally just come off of an interaction in which Adam had the nerve to complain that donating an organ to Faith hadn't been enough to earn him even common civility over the long haul. Maybe. I wanted Nick to reply, "That's because before you did that, you stole her from her mother and let her believe that her baby was dead while you handed her over to your then-stepmother, whom you caused to lose your younger sibling when she found out how much you suck at doing drag. Look, I get that we have to forget certain things in order to keep stirring the pot, but you can't play a moment in which a bad guy wants credit for his good deeds without someone pointing out why he so desperately needed to do good deeds in the first place." And honestly, all that was required there was a look from Nick that said, "Seriously." That would have been enough. We didn't need it spelled out for us. Spoiler alert. We never need it spelled out for us. That's why we so loved it when Daniel and Lily referenced the old days when people would have objected to them being together. The characters remember when he was a porn addict carrying on with Amber, and so do we. Supernatural chemistry, before we get back to the Newmans, and we will. Let's talk about Daniel and Lily for a moment. They have it. When Michael Graziadei and Crystal Khalil interact, it seems natural and organic. They seem genuinely alive. Not every duo on this or any show has that, and it's lightning in a bottle. Glad to see Young and Restless capitalizing on it and them. Graz also really wowed me during Daniel's breakfast with Phyllis and Summer. Michelle Stafford is a magnificently large presence when she's on screen. Even if you want to throttle Phyllis, you can't take your eyes off of her, so it would be easy for an actor to sort of fade in her presence. Graz doesn't. Without matching her level of intensity, which would be all wrong for Daniel anyway, he volleys back in a way that is uniquely his own, smart, entertaining, and utterly engaging. Candy's probably said it 1,000,000 times already, but bringing him back to the show was one of the shrewdest moves that executive producer/head writer Josh Griffith ever made. Now back to our regularly scheduled Newmans. Victor's desire to unite his family, except for Abby, by any means necessary creates some fine conflict. But it also creates some big plot holes. Like why, after telling Adam that they shouldn't bother trying to be polite anymore, was Nick championing the idea of them working together? Why does Victor think that forcing them to work together will lead to anything but fisticuffs? Is he just so bored that he's looking to blow up his family anew for the amusement factor? 'Cause blowing it up seems like a sure thing. Furthermore, why was Adam whining to Sharon that he wanted to take down Newman Media so that he could finally have some autonomy? Is he unaware that there are other towns and other businesses? He doesn't have to remain in Genoa City, where the only thing there are fewer of than police detectives is friends of his. I know. Obviously he can't leave, and I wouldn't want him to. But instead of circling the same plot point, Why not just have him say screw it, and buy Jimmy's, the dive bar that Kane used to own? We'll drink a lot to this. What else did we discover this week? Dunno about you, but it turns out that Drunk Tucker is my favorite Tucker, and no, I know what you're thinking, but this realization was not just sparked by the crazy mollusk joke that had to have been ad-libbed by Trevor Street John. What writer could have guessed that he would pull off such nonsense so perfectly? It was so natural, so silly, delightful. And at last, Audra isn't merely connected and full of potential but bleeping hilarious and realizing her potential. Her reactions to Drunk Tucker were chef's kiss, money in the bank. In fact, you know what? At this point, I'm willing to forget that Audra was brought on as a big-time spoiler for Noah and Allie. Remember them? I do, barely, and just accept her as the mischievous agent of chaos that she is. Somewhere along the line, Zalika Silver hit her stride in a big way. Now when I look at her, I think what I imagine Bill Bell would've. That's the future of Young and Restless right there. As for Tucker, I mean, how priceless is the hot mess that he is? He reveals to Audra that he's come to understand that the key to the future is throwing away the past, even as he moves heaven and earth to get together for realsies with Ashley, the ex-wife whose propensity for marriage he diminished by at least, 50%. Maybe more, math is hard, and his master plan moving forward is to use Phyllis to so annoy Diane that he and Ashley can make off with Jebut's greatest hits. Not sure I follow and not sure I have to. It makes as little sense as Victor insisting that his children work together, except for Abby, but it's fun, so I'll just roll with it. I had no inkling this was coming. Over at the Starbucks of Genoa City, Sharon expressed to Chance her surprise that stalker Cameron had left her his company in his will with all the wonderment of a teenager who's just received a promposal. I know that the man was obsessed with me, but so relatable, who hasn't been there, right? Chance in turn marveled at the fact that Sharon wore extremely high heels all day to sling lats and bagels. Ugh, not really. But I'd die if somebody finally asked her, Sharon, honey, what is up with that? Obviously what actually happened was that Sharon locked the door and took Chance to, her office. 2 questions about this. 1. Other than the fact that everyone wants to be swept off their feet, why did he pick her up to carry her 3 steps away to the sofa on which they stepped? Had he actually noticed the shoes that had to have been killing her feet by closing time? If he did, marry that man too. Considering how traditional a love scene it was, why did Sharon take Chance to her office if he wasn't going to knock all of the paperwork off of the desk? That's soap seduction 101, isn't it? Between this and Kyle and Audra getting it on, it was a pretty steamy week in Genoa City. Oh, and did anybody else do a double take when Sharon referred to Kirsten Incorporated as my dream, since 5 minutes ago? I thought her dream was to use her therapeutic powers to help people, and when her therapeutic powers weren't enough, to alleviate people's mental anguish with pastries and coffee. Suddenly, she's a bigwig? Why not, I guess? Why should she be the only person in all of Genoa City who doesn't have a major corporation to call her own? And it isn't like she's unqualified. As someone pointed out, Nick, I think, Sharon definitely shouldn't be underestimated in the business world, not because she was in charge of Newman for a minute once while Victor was dead, but because she knows a lot of power players. And was married to literally all of them. Scent of a woman. Day after day, Susan Walters reminds us what a gem of an actress she is, but she shone especially brightly in the scenes in which Diane comforted Summer, acknowledged her past and explained why she didn't hate her daughter-in-law. Walters was so utterly natural, I believed every word Diane said. Even Summer couldn't poo-poo the sentiments the way she wanted to. I know Candy has had it up to here with Street Diane, but I love this iteration of the character. She's evolved, she's grown, she's wised up. She still has that fire inside her, but unlike Phyllis, she has matured to the point that she can keep it in check. But I digress. I also loved the moment when Diane was leaving Summer alone with Kyle, then stopped in her tracks when the young woman smelled perfume on her estranged husband. Fun. Although we might have taken it a step further and had Diane kiss Kyle goodnight, notice the fragrance and shake her head. Ya gotta at least shower afterward, sweetie. On a related note, I was completely baffled by the tag at the end of Tuesday's show. Summer ran into Audra and immediately got a whiff of the perfume that she'd smelled on Kyle. How on earth did the show not pick that up the next day? Summer baiting Audra to confess that she'd been with Kyle was low-hanging fruit. Why not pick it? Alison Lanier brings such a raw, in-the-moment every-moment quality to her character. I would have liked to see her let loose. Then again, I guess we did see that, when Summer confronted Kyle and then weirdly on Friday and the powers that be got around to letting her and Audra face off. It just seemed super strange to delay the showdown that had been so perfectly teed up. Just how strong is Audra's fragrance, by the way? Something tells me she doesn't do a light spritz. That would never fly at Jabba, so I guess it's good that her position at Newman was solidified in Victor's whole, you get a company, and you get a company, and you get a company Oprah moment. For now, anyway. I love how Adam, of all people, was like, but does anybody trust her? Buddy, nobody trusts you, and yet. The Breakfast Club. I may be in the minority in being Team Diane, but doesn't anybody else get tired of watching Ashley be nasty to Jack's fiancé? Yeah, Diane's past is more checkered than Victor's chessboard, but so is Tucker's, and Ashley's apparently falling in love with him again. For realsies. At least Ashley offered Diane one of Mrs. Martinez's freshly baked muffins, which Diane seemed to take with her to eat at Society. Or did she go to Society and order a muffin there rather than give Ashley the satisfaction of taking one from her? That's not important. What is important is the 1-2 punch that the show delivered with Phyllis coming face to face for the first time with Diane and then Christine. Tucker was, per usual, a hoot, telling Phyllis and Diane that the ground rules for the catfight that he hoped would ensue did not disallow hair-pulling and face-slapping. They were encouraged, actually, but Diane took the high road and refused to take the bait that Tucker dangled. As she had with Ashley, Diane behaved like a sane, sensible grown-up who was trying to swallow a very bitter pill. Phyllis freedom, rather than act rashly and likely make more trouble for herself than her sworn rival. I love grown-ups, and Diane holding back makes it all the more exciting and meaningful when she does retaliate, like in the flashback to her and Phyllis throwdown at the Bicentennial Gala. Speaking of flashbacks, the one that recalled Phyllis' attempted murder of Christine was perfectly placed. Christine may not be able to use that crime to get her would-be killer sent up the river, but it certainly informs her unflappable belief that Phyllis could have outright murdered Jeremy. And Phyllis was so very, very Phyllis in her tense talk with the bug. At this point, I think she's repeated her lie about being under Jeremy's spell so often that she doesn't remember that it's a lie, and it was 1,000% on brand for Phyllis to chalk up Christine's pursuit of justice to a personal vendetta. What was Phyllis' line? Something about "you've hated me since the day you met me." Ah, yeah, when you were busy stealing Christine's husband Phyllis. It's also totally on brand for Phyllis' attitude about her attempted murder of Christine to be like, are you still on about that? As if Phyllis had just stolen Christine's yogurt from the fridge at work or something. And another thing, did I miss it, or did the show ever explain why Paul's daughter is so keen on getting an acquittal for the maniac who once tried to make roadkill of him and Christine? Heather does know that Phyllis once plowed into her dad and his now estranged wife, right? Honestly, Michael should be here for this stuff. Hurt as he was by Phyllis' death, his support of her would make sense. Heather's doesn't. Asterisk, I want to like Victoria and Nate more than I do, but I don't. Maybe it's because I don't get the idea that either of them really gives a bleep about the other. They're just going through the motions and considering sex a job perk. Like a corner office. The saving grace of their storyline may be Victoria's inevitable downfall, 'cause you know Nate's gonna stab her in the back and seize control the first chance he gets. Just ask the cousin he betrayed both in business and in their personal lives. I think we're supposed to be inspired by the story of Chelsea starting over with the loving support of the man that she raped. Alas, I'm not, and returning Chelsea to the fashion world feels like dressing her in clothes that were out of season last season. It's odd, but while I adore good Diane, I'm not so crazy about good Chelsea. Maybe she could discover that she's lost her eye for style and wind up pulling an OG Sally Spectra by stealing designs from Bestie Chloe. Asterisk, stop me if you've heard this one before. But all these rich folks need servants. The Abbotts and Newmans talk so freely about their schemes where anyone could hear them. It would be a blast if Jeeves reported to Diane, the boss on whom he has a crush, that Ashley and Tucker are plotting to make her go mental. Honestly, at this point, I hope that I Hate Diane Club succeeds in ticking her off so badly that she goes all scorched earth on their asses and makes them rue the day that they decided that hers were the only sins that couldn't be forgiven. If Diane's gonna lose it, and by, she's gotta, or I will. The fireworks are going to be colossal. If you're still here, congratulations, you have just slogged through what may well be the longest column in history. I swear I meant to keep it short and tight, as a reward for your endurance.